Welcome back to another episode of the Frame by Frame podcast, where we talk about video editing, storytelling, and everything that goes along with that, including the business side of things. Today was a super exciting episode as I got to sit down with Tyler Mowery. I call him the master of storytelling because he is basically a master of storytelling, and you'll see why in this episode. Tyler Mowery runs a YouTube channel with 265,000 subscribers, and he is a professional screenplay writer, and he just recently started something called the Top Development Team, which we will be diving into in this episode. So sit down, get a cup of coffee. If you're driving, sit back and relax and enjoy this episode. I'm super excited to have you on today, though, dude. Thanks for coming on, diving in. I'm ready to dive into your story. I know.
Absolutely.
So I first of all wanted to start because I know that you're a screenwriter, you're a YouTuber, and also you have Top Development, which we'll go into later because I want to know more about that as well. But I wanted to ask, did you start as a screenwriter, or did you start as a YouTuber? Like, what came first? Like, how did you get into that?
Yeah, so my story very quickly was when I was a kid, I wanted to be a novelist. So I read a lot of books. So when I was starting out, like my parents were pretty strict about what video games, like how much I could play video games, how much I could watch TV, watch movies, this sort of stuff. And so what this meant was I had to go and find something else to do. And what that meant a lot of the time was reading books. And so I was reading like mystery novels and fantasy books and, post-apocalyptic dramas and all this sort of stuff, right? And that was really where I started my love of story. And initially I was like, I'm going to be a novelist. That's what I'm going to do with my life. And then that shifted. I got into YouTube in middle school, So early Minecraft videos kind of got me hooked into this thing, right? And so I was watching like early, Minecraft alpha YouTubers play Minecraft, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then I got into web series, like animated web series on YouTube, where people were telling stories with Adobe Illustrator and these kinds of things on YouTube. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to do like internet web series, right? Then that shifted more and more as I got closer to college. Throughout this time, I was watching movies, and I loved movies, but I wasn't seeing them as the way that I thought I was going to go until right before college. And I was like, okay, you know what? I think films are going to be the way that I want to tell stories because, people don't really read books. I mean, they do some, but especially novels, if you ask somebody what they're reading, it's probably nonfiction, but they'll go watch a movie, right? So
yeah, I was
like, okay, I'll do films. Like that's what I'll do. And so I kind of came at it from this angle of story first, not film first, right? I was never like a filmmaker first. I was always a person who really liked stories, and that's why starting with books was valuable for me, because that's pure story. It's just words, right? Just the story. So then I got into screenwriting, I got into filmmaking from there. And then I started my YouTube channel while I was already in film school in college. At this point I had written like a screenplay or two. And I was like, I'm going to I watched every frame of painting in a film class, and which is a video essay channel for those that don't know. And I remember watching his videos and being like, this is the most fascinating thing I've ever watched. I left that class and watched every single video on his channel that day. And I was like, this is just brilliant. And he inspired me to start my own video essay channel studying stories. And so initially I wasn't using it to teach people about screenwriting or anything like this. I was using it to help me deepen my understanding of films in all different ways. So I studied directing and screenwriting and editing and cinematography and scores and all this sort of stuff, just to understand more what was making them good. And then over time, as I was also writing, making shorts and making YouTube videos, I then later on got into the whole screenwriting side, which is its own other thing after kind of being in LA and that sort of stuff. So Initially, it was books.
Right. Nice, man. That's awesome. So you started in a completely different way than I had thought. And it's true to your point though, with like the using YouTube not to teach but to learn. It's because people really underestimate like how much work goes into a YouTube video, especially a video essay, like your kind of format of YouTube. It's a lot of work. And like, I'm one of the editors. I edit for some of Tyler's videos. And, you know, sometimes like just the editing alone, I can't believe that he did it by himself. Like, because I can't believe you did it by yourself. For how long did you edit those videos by yourself?
So I started my channel in 2016, and I was editing them myself only all the way until 2020, I believe. And then I think you came in, was it 2020 or 2021? Do you remember?
It was 2020, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So essentially from 2016 until when you came on and Dan, the other editor, came on, that it was just me. So there was a period, crazy. I think the craziest point in my sort of workload was in 2018, I had gone to LA and I was a script reader, right? I was reading all these scripts, and this was a huge turning point in my writing and in what I was going to do with my life, because I had gone through this crazy film school experience, and where I left the film school after being in it for only a semester, and I was like, okay, I need to get out to LA. I need to get in the film industry, right? So I get out to LA, I get this script reader internship, and I'm reading all these pro scripts, and I'm like, oh man, like these are all pretty bad. Like I was kind of surprised. I was like, look at these professional writers, and their scripts are not solid at all. And so, and at that point I was like, oh, well, awesome. You know, I'll just write a better screenplay than them and become a pro writer. Simple, right? Like it's just straightforward. And so, so I wrote this script while I was working there, and I developed some strong relationships with a few of the producers that were above me, and they were kind enough to let me submit my screenplay to them and take a look at it. But when they took a look at it, they told me that my writing was Z grade. I actually remember this quote very vividly. He was like, yeah, I mean, this is kind of a Z grade script. And I was like,
brutal.
Okay. Brutal, yeah. And, you know, I didn't feel so high and mighty about these other scripts that I'd been reading at that point, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I need to figure this out. Like that was kind of one of my wake up moments where I was like, okay, I have been studying this thing for years at this point, right? At that point, I had been, you know, writing stories of all different kinds for a long time. And specifically when I was a script reader, I had written 4 or 5 screenplays at this point, as well as doing a lot of different shorts. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out what's not working. What's wrong here? Why am I still bad at this? And so after that point, I started really taking a more analytical look at the scripts that they were receiving and trying to say, okay, how do I identify the problems in these scripts, right? What is objectively not working here, and how would I try to fix it to make it a better story? Right. As I started doing that, I started realizing that all of these books and different ideas about how to write, like it was all very, very scattered. So Sid Field had his ideas on how to write a screenplay. John Truby had his ideas. Blake Snyder with Save the Cat had his ideas. Robert McKee with Story had his ideas, but nobody was really speaking the same language, and it was all very confused, and you couldn't fit them together, right? They didn't really speak to each other. So what this meant was some people had these terms and some people had those terms. And so after I got back from this internship working as a script reader, I was like, okay, I need to build a practical understanding of how to actually identify and solve screenplay problems in a way that helped writers like me that were just looking at the page and it didn't make sense at all, right? It wasn't about winning an Oscar. It was about, okay, how do we just make this thing better? How do we understand what's not working and make it better? And so
dialing in your craft.
Exactly. And so from there, that was when I had a big shift in my channel. from, okay, I'm generally studying film through video essays of all different types to, okay, I am now building my practical view on story and what was helping me and what was helping me identify and solve problems in the scripts that I was reading. And so this is how practical screenwriting was born, which was what I was doing before top development. And practical screenwriting was about identifying and solving problems in screenplays. And so it was very much kind of taking a script that wasn't working and being very, very specific on why it was not working, what the vision for that story was, and then fixing that story according to that writer's vision.
Which exactly was a lot of the videos I remember working on as well.
Yes.
So what was the point you went from practical screenwriting to top development?
So
what happened there basically? What was the whole idea behind that and made you, because it was under practical screenwriting, but also Tyler Mowery, right? Your channel, like everyone knew the channel for you. So it's, when you have that many subscribers, I feel like it does take a lot of humility to be like, okay, I'm going to take a step back as far as like a personal brand goes. And now I'm going to label it as like top development, like an actual like company or brand. You know what I mean? So what was like the whole thought process and idea behind changing that and going into top development?
Yeah. So before top development, I was very much positioned as screenwriting guru, consultant guy who can help you fix your script, right? And so that was the purpose of practical screenwriting. It's like, hey, I'm working with writers. They're bringing a script to me. We're identifying what's not working in that script, and I'm helping them fix it. And I did that over and over and over and over and over again. And so over the course of a couple of years, I worked with just about 100 screenwriters. And what my process was it was me and them. Over a 2 to 3 month period, we would identify every single major problem in their screenplay and rewrite the script together to create a much better draft of it, right? And so what I was doing is I was sending these writers through full rewrites every single time, over and over and over and over again, identifying what was not working in their story, clarifying their theme, clarifying their character webs, their philosophical conflict, their structure, all of this, and then having them rebuild it. And so I was doing this over and over and over and over again. And that was hugely valuable because as I was doing this, I started to build this story language, right? So up to this point, there's other sort of beat sheets and general ideas about story and how it works that some of these other screenwriting teachers have done, like Robert McKee and John Truby and these kinds of people. But I found that there was a lot of terms that didn't make sense and that a lot of people were not speaking the same language. So that when they would come to me, there were all these different terms and definitions that were all confusing and didn't make sense. And over my time working with these writers, I developed a story framework that essentially is whether you are rewriting or whether you are starting your story from the very beginning, this story framework helps you focus your story around the central meaningful conflict at its core, and then you build everything out from there. That was kind of step one. Then the other big piece I realized was I got in contact with this guy. His name is Oliver Carmack. And Oliver also saw a lot of problems in screenwriting and storytelling and how films were made as well and how the production process also played into this. And his big element to this was the community aspect. And what I was doing was it was just me, Tyler Mowery, on YouTube working with writers one-on-one. And Oliver came in and one of his big contributions was to say, hey, this framework that you are developing, this story language, like it only works if we have a large number of people that are viewing story in that way together. So then you can find collaborators, you can give feedback within a story language that everyone understands together rather than getting vague kind of unhelpful feedback based on feeling from coverage sites or your friends or professors or these sorts of things. And so what Top Development's mission is and why we've shifted from me, the lone person, to the screenwriter tribe, this Top Development tribe, is our goal is to unite the tribe of screenwriters under a unified story language, which is the Top Development Story Framework, so that we can find collaborators, get helpful feedback, and ultimately empower screenwriters to write their great screenplay. And that is our goal.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. And has your workload been a lot easier, do you say, or less busy now that you have more people on the team? Because now I've noticed that it's not just you behind the camera. You know what I mean? It's been like a few different people.
So that's a good question. This kind of goes more into business world and all this sort of stuff. But my workload has not decreased. It's more so I'm just doing different tasks for what we're doing. Right. So it's kind of like, and not that I'm not going to be making YouTube videos. I actually I'm going to be back on the channel here very, very soon with a video kind of explaining all of what's going on with Top Development. And I've got an interesting one about concept and characters that it's going to be a good one.
Awesome.
So I'll be back on the channel here in a second. But like, it's been a ton of work building all of this out to make it work for people coming in. And to help build this tribe. And so I think that this is what we're doing, I think is super revolutionary for screenwriting and for storytelling as a whole, because this framework is the clearest way to view story that is out there, period. And I can say that with confidence. And taking that, also the fact that like right now the film industry is very closed off to writers trying to enter. If you're not in LA, scraping by, working 10 hours a day for, some underpaid position, you're not really getting any closer to being a screenwriter. You're not meeting other writers. You're not doing any of this. And so I don't think that makes a lot of sense. And most people are not going to be moving to LA to take their whole life, to throw their whole life behind so that they can work 80 hours a week, so that maybe they might potentially have a chance 10 years in the future to do some writing. It's like, that doesn't make a ton of sense. So what we are doing is we are building that tribe through the internet and teaching people together this story language and this story framework so that they can speak to each other. They can find collaborators. They can work together on stories, and they can create great screenplays, and also find the connections within that group so that they can move forward in some way with that story. And so that can be a myriad of different ways. So for example, I've worked with independent feature filmmakers. There's a guy in Panama. His name is Gurnier. He's actually premiering the film that we worked on his screenplay here shortly. There's writers in Germany that I've worked with. There's a guy named Rodney, super cool guy. He's a documentary filmmaker in the film industry. There's a writer named Paul who actually lives near me in Santa Monica, who has got his screenplay picked up, and it was the one that we worked on together. And so I've met all these fascinating, cool people that they have their own way about getting their story moved forward again, making their film. And I want to bring these people together rather than it just be me and them, and then they disappear and I disappear and they don't meet anybody that I've worked with, and there is no, there's no group. But when there is a group, I think we get so much stronger that way. And that's my mission.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And that's super cool. And I saw on Instagram when you started promoting the Top Development stuff, I saw screenwriters I follow and stuff who follow you. They were all posting on their stories and being like, this guy's changing the game. So it's super cool to see. It's super cool too, because I feel like you're genuinely helping screenwriters become talented screenwriters. Cause dude, I look at movies how in the world did Sharknado get approved? You know what I mean? Random scripts like that, just terrible movies. So it's good that you have screenwriters like yourself helping other screenwriters truly become good storytellers and like truly understand story. Because I still am blown away with how many bad scripts are on the big screen in the movie theaters.
Absolutely. And it doesn't seem like it's getting better, right? Like it seems like the quality is only getting worse right now, especially in the post Marvel era. Right?
Oh my God. I was literally just about to bring up Marvel as an example.
Yeah. Well, like I think Marvel had a brilliant run. I mean, shout out Feige, right? For creating, I mean, he's a visionary, right? I mean, nobody has done a franchise at the scale that he has pulled off. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant what he's been able to accomplish and what the Marvel Studios teams have been able to accomplish. But now we're kind of in this post Marvel era, right? Like, the big run, you know, up to Thanos and Endgame and this sort of thing. Like, we're past that now, and there isn't really, you know, now we're sort of back to this state of there's no real IP that we're grabbing onto and saying this is the next cool thing, or this is the next franchise, or this is the next auteur director that's going to be coming to the forefront and taking over. Like even writers and directors that we all love, they're all older, right? They're all people that have had the core of their career has already happened. Right? Like, does Christopher Nolan have his best film ahead of him? I don't know. Maybe Oppenheimer is his best film. We'll you know, that remains to be seen. It's going to be hard to beat The Dark Knight, but
I know. but dude, I would love to see a video of you, like, if like I like being you, like if I was able to write the screenplays for the next Marvel movies, like this is what I would do. Because the latest Ant-Man movie, I think the thing they're trying to, like, for example, get us to hang on to, like the new Thanos or whatever, is Kang the Conqueror. Mm-hmm. The problem is, I don't know if you saw the new Ant-Man, but I just felt like it was just so bland. It was like, I don't know. That was my thoughts on it.
Well, honestly, they don't, like, Marvel needs to be done, right? They need to do something new. Yeah. So, like, this is the other piece where Hollywood is having to always play it safe now, because this is one of my big beliefs is that part of the reason we see so many remakes and franchises that go on until they are absolutely ground to nothing is because there is no confidence in story quality.
Right.
But if you're able to have real confidence in story quality and you can build a brand around that, then you can give people new IP that's different and unique that they will still come and see. And it doesn't have to be the same thing over and over again. So if Marvel had this strength of story quality and they could say, okay, we're going to shift outside of the mainstream Marvel universe that we've set up and try to do something new and rebuild and start up this new world, I think that's super risky, which is why they don't want to do it, but also would be best for our interest in what they do next. And if, like, Pixar is the perfect example of this, right? Like, Pixar was not built off of sequels and reboots and remakes. Obviously, they have, you know, like the Toy Stories and these sorts of things. And they've done a lot of cars, but the Pixar worked because the story quality was high, and you knew that when you went to see a Pixar movie, no matter what that particular Pixar film was, you could be sure that you were going to go in and see a fantastic story. That is what built the brand, not the fact that you had heard of their IP from the 80s. Right?
Yeah. Totally.
And so that's what we need to get back to. And that is what I want top development to do in the long term.
I love that. You know, you talked a lot about story quality, and recently I've been reading. I read it forever ago, but I've been rereading the John Truby's book, The Art of Storytelling. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, right?
Anatomy of Story.
The Anatomy of Story. I'm reading it. I didn't even realize the name. I'm about halfway through right now, and he has some interesting points. But you also talk a lot about, like, the Dan Harmon story circle. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about, like, quality story, do you think that any one of those specific like story elements are really important to incorporate, or do you think like you should incorporate all of them? Do you have a favorite? Like, what's your viewpoint on the different kind of, I guess to make this question easier to understand, it's like there's different directors, different people, different writers, different editors, filmmakers believe in different forms of storytelling, whether that be Dan Harmon's story circle, whether that be like John Truby's take on story, whatever. But what do you view any of those to be like the best over any other?
So there's a few pieces to this. I'll start with the most important piece of story first, and then I'll talk about kind of structural methods and these kinds of things. So no matter what kind of story you're telling, the most important thing that is going to make that story work is a strong thematic argument. You could think about this like a thesis statement in an essay, right? The thing your story is arguing for, the view on life that your story is arguing for. Because if you are creating a dramatic narrative with a theme, that means that you are going to have a story argument. When you have a story argument, essentially saying life should be, or life is this way, or this is the choice that this character makes, which shows that they chose freedom, therefore this story is arguing for freedom over extreme order, these sorts of things. Kind of thinking about Snowpiercer here. But you take a thematic argument, and then when you have that thematic argument, you then create the opposing belief, right? If this is your yin, then you have the yang, right? Of the other side. Now you have this viewpoint versus viewpoint philosophical conflict, right? This is where you get the belief layer of the story, right? Where your story is now about the choices and the viewpoints and how your characters see the world. You build all that in this philosophical conflict. From there, you then build a character web under this. So what makes a story feel interesting and unique and not black and white is that you have characters that have a nuanced view of these two viewpoints, where it's not just black and white anymore. Now this character believes this version of it. This character has this expression of it. This character, so on and so forth. That is the foundation of a story no matter what. So from that point, if you can build a story with a strong philosophical conflict and a clear character web, no matter what sort of structural method you want to take, or whether you want to do it at or whether your pacing is slower versus faster, or any of this, that becomes the foundation of your entire story. Is characters in a web having to make choices based upon not just externally what they want, but also what they believe and how they will exist in life. So an example of this that's just kind of one that's really kind of clear and easy to see. If you have a character who, let's say she is a mother and she believes that abortion is deeply wrong, right? Then suddenly her daughter gets pregnant by some, deadbeat guy, and is going to destroy their reputation in their community if she has this child. Well, now she has a choice to make, right? Now does this mother say, no, you have to have this baby and destroy our family's reputation and all this? Or does this mother say, you know what, like, let's just get rid of this. Let's just sweep this under the rug. Let's move on. Now this is a belief level choice, right? The choice that the character makes now shows us who they really are. And the choices that you give your characters will define your story, no matter what structural method you want to use. If you can make powerful choices, essentially it's what does your character believe, and then what is a problem in the external world you can create to specifically challenge their beliefs. If you can do that, it doesn't matter what sort of structural method you want to use. That will be the foundation for your story. Then from there, we can talk about, okay, do you want to use a 15-beat structure? Do you want to use this structure? Do you want to use that structure? Right. The reason I like Dan Harmon's story circle and why it is the structural method that I use all of the time is the story circle is not just a method of structure. The story circle is the expression of how your character goes through an arc. So structure is not just the beats your character must hit. Structure is the necessary points your character must hit so that they actually go through an arc of change. So for example, in the Harmon Story Circle, if you look at one, you have your character, they want something, and then they encounter a problem, right? They encounter a problem, and then they're going to make a choice and take action after that problem. That's going to show us who they are, right? This sets up who they are. Then on the other side of the circle, you have then a more pivotal problem and then a second choice, which then, if they make a similar choice to the one they made earlier, they have a flat arc. If they make a different choice, now that we can show that they have changed. Right? Even within this singular movement of structure, we can show a character's arc. And so you need structure if you want your characters to go through change. Therefore, a dramatic narrative must have a clear structure to be functional.
Right. Man, that was, I don't think that could have been put in a better way. You can go ahead and drop that mic if you want. No, dude, it's true. Like, I literally 100% agree with everything you just said. And obviously, you know much more than I do on the topic. But because, like myself, I'm an editor, and I try to apply different. Like, I read a lot about story, and I try to apply different like story elements to editing. Like sometimes, if I feel like something's not structured well, I will look at a Dan Harmon Story Circle. Like, that's my go-to, because to me, it's one of the easiest because it's like an 8-step or 8-beat structure, but also I feel like it just provides some of the best results. Now, don't let that like make what I just said shine away from anything you just said, because what you just said was like, definitely take that away as like a note on storytelling. But I try to use that like with, for example, if there's a bad edit, I'm like, okay, well, how can I go through this story circle or at least some elements of it to just try to tie this edit into like a full complete story. So it's helpful, I feel like, on any level of, I don't want to say like filmmaking, but any, like, as far as writing goes, as far as editing goes, like I've even used that on certain YouTube edits, and not like like vlog style edits, you know what I mean? And it worked well on that. And I'm always trying to go into like the psychology of things and stuff. But that's something I love about editing on your channel too, is that I'm able to like learn so much about story.
I love it. Well, what's awesome about thinking about this in regards to editing is a big thing that we're all trying to do when we make internet videos and edit internet videos is we want to hold the attention of the audience, right?
Right.
If you're actually holding their attention, then they will continue to watch what you're showing them. If you do not hold their attention, then they're going to click away or swipe to the next TikTok video or whatever, right? So then the question becomes, how do we actually hold their attention for longer than 7 seconds or 3 seconds or however?
Right.
When you view an edit or you view a video in regards to a story, you are then creating this and therefore sort of flow that the writers of South Park talk about that then creates your audience's continued engagement. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to say, okay, here's this thing, but boom, and we shift to this next piece, right? And so then you're essentially taking them through this journey of a story by having key turning points, right? So that is what is super valuable about a story and why it holds the engagement of the audience so well, is because you're taking them through clear turning points. And when you can give a viewer clear turning points in the journey that you're taking them through, then they become engaged, versus writing some sort of long informational essay about, all right, we're going to talk about this and blah, 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 blah. You're only appealing to the logical side of their brain. You're not appealing to the engagement, the emotion, the what's going to happen next side of their brain. And if you can't engage the what's going to happen next side, they're going to click to the next video.
Totally. Absolutely. That's a really good point. I actually wanted to ask you too, because we're talking a lot about like the Hollywood side of, or the more like studio side of things. But like, there's so many creators coming up now as far as like the online kind of like YouTube platforms go and stuff, TikTok, that kind of thing. But as far as like YouTube specifically, like if you could give a tip to an editor like coming up on YouTube on like really how to stand out? Like, because not only have you looked for editors before, but second, it's like, as far as like, would your tips be like learn story or learn something along those lines? Because it's hard. Like I myself have looked for editors before. It's hard to find a good editor who understands like basic pacing and flow. Mm-hmm. So like from your experience in like script writing or storytelling and understanding a high level of storytelling, would you give like, what piece of advice would you give to an editor trying to come up in that like content, like who's getting jaded by so much short? Because right now it's like people are getting so jaded by short form content and they're so focused on the effects and the cool transitions and like, how can I keep engagement? And that's all cool. Like the bells and whistles, it's all nice. But like at the end of the day, I think you need to focus on the structure of the video, like making the video make sense. But I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, what's great about the internet is its viciousness, right? If you don't do it right, you'll know. You get 18 views on your video, you know? Yeah. And I think that's that level of obvious sort of binary, it works or it doesn't, has been huge for the change and will continue to be huge for the change in how we are actually viewing the things that we are making. I think that there has been, for a long time, especially in Hollywood, there has been this general sense that what we're doing is art first, and therefore when somebody comes to look at what we have created, they should come in with this respect towards our art. And that does not exist on the internet. No one respects you at all. You have to grab them. If you don't grab them, they will swipe away and they will forget about you, and they will go to the millions of other videos that are vying for their attention. So totally, it's about understanding that, like, hey, what we're doing here is not like, it is an art, because everything you do, if you're a creative person and you're passionate about it, it is an expression of art, but you must understand that this is craft. You must understand that the first 3 seconds of your video must be engaging and must hook them in a way that makes them continue to watch, because if you do not, they will go away. There's been this trend for such a long time in films and in people's short films, especially, and in screenplays and even in YouTube videos, where people believe that they can waste time for the first 3 minutes of a movie or a video or something like this, but people should watch because this is my art and I want to be indulgent here. And that is just going to exist less and less and less with the internet, because you cannot be indulgent. You must understand that you need to grab them in the first 3 seconds. You need to be extremely clear about what this video is about, why they need to watch, why what they're about to watch is going to be helpful for them or entertaining, or you're going to take them on this journey. And if you don't do that, it doesn't matter at all. And I think some of that is in the editing, and some of that is in getting to the point as fast as possible. The other side of this too is in actually having something of value for them. So when I go back to the big shift in my channel, right? So back when I was just making regular video essays, very general video essays, right? I think I was at about 17,000 subscribers, and I had been doing it for something like 2.5 years. What was 2016, 2019? Sorry, 2.5. Yeah, about 2.5 years.
Wow.
And I was about 17,000 subscribers. The first year of my channel, I was under 1,000 subscribers the whole year, posting every single week, under 1,000 subs. Nobody was watching, but there I was, putting videos up. It was actually crazy when I was at like 600 subscribers. This little channel, you may have heard of it, called Lessons from the Screenplay started up. He actually started up after me. So I'd been making videos already for 6-7 months. I had a few hundred subscribers. This guy puts up a video, and I saw it on r/screenwriting, and it was called Don't Underestimate the Screenwriter. And I clicked it and I watched it, and the video had like 4,000 views, and I was like, and he had 1,000 subscribers. And I was like, oh man, like that's cool. Like he's having a video kind of pop off immediately. That's great for him. I go to sleep, I wake up the next day, the video has 200,000 views. He has something like 15,000 subscribers, and I almost stopped doing YouTube.
Yeah, I could imagine, man. That sounds, that must have been like so discouraging.
It was brutal, because it was like, I've been doing this, I've been putting all my effort and energy and time into these videos, and I just wasn't good. Right? Like it wasn't about, oh, he had caught the algorithm better than me and he just got lucky and I blah, 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 blah. No, his videos were objectively better than mine. Right. He was a better editor. He was speaking better. His videos were more succinct, all of this. And, that was super frustrating. But fast forward, I continued to just slog away at these general video essays that people somewhat liked and somewhat didn't like. But then I was at 17,000 subs. I come back from being a script reader and I start this full shift in my channel from general video essays to practical screenwriting videos. And that was where the run began. Blew up. Yeah. And I went from 17,000 subscribers to 150,000 over the course of like 7 or 8 months. It was this huge run.
At this point, you have a couple videos with over 1 million views, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. It's cool to contrast that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it goes back to the point I was talking about, which was like the most important thing is that you have to have something of actual value that is clear for people, right? Because you can have the coolest TikTok transitions and the coolest, most sleek editing, but if you don't have something that is actually valuable at the core of the content you are giving people, you are not going to grow that fast. Right? What changed with my videos was I was putting all of my effort into really being as helpful as I possibly could for the people that were watching my videos, and it showed. And they could feel that because the videos were actually beneficial. And that's how I got to hundreds of thousands of views on these videos, over 500,000, and then some of my videos have done even better than that, because I had shifted from general, unfocused, making some videos about some topics to being very specific about what I was talking about, very specific about how it was helpful to people, and was consistent in giving them that very specific, helpful content.
Man, that's good advice. That's really good advice, because I've recently noticed with like the pop in short form content, I've noticed it's so weird. Like there's this like meme that goes around like editing is dying, because what's happening is these people are coming in offering shorts or long form video edits for like way cheaper now, and it's undercutting a lot of people. And like I was talking to, because I have an editing course, so I have a couple people who talk to me in that course, like in the community, and they're like, what do you think about this? Because like this dude who lives in, somewhere in like South Africa or something, where they get paid way less, is like asking like a third of the price of what I was getting. And now this client left me, but I know I provide a lot more value. And like, I was like, man, I have to think about that, because that is a tough situation, because you're getting undercut even though you provide more value in your editing. But with the advice you just said, I think in the long run, that'll come back and the creator will end up going back to the editor who is better, because whoever can provide better value, to the point you were saying, I think will eventually grow more and grow faster, because you're putting out better content.
Definitely. And I think the other side of this, just how I was talking about the internet is vicious in its, quality, where if you don't have the engaging video, people aren't going to watch. It also goes the other side, where the internet is now opening it up to more and more people are able to have these online job opportunities. And so then the hard question is, when somebody says, I know I provide more value, do you?
Yeah. Do
you actually? Because clearly he went with someone else, or this client that you had went somewhere else, right? And that can be very hard to hear. But I think if you are being, if someone else is able to come in and take clients away from you that has much less editing experience from you, and you're only competing on price, then I think you have to rethink how you are presenting yourself as a person to work with the clients that you are going to work with, right? So there are more factors that there are more factors to you working with a client other than simply price, right? And if you only compete in the price world, some guy in Bangladesh is going to beat you every time because he can charge, $2 an hour for what you're going to pay, what you're going to charge way more for, right? So you have to compete in a different way. How do you do that? Well, one, if you have the editing experience, one, your videos should just objectively be better. But two, there's other intangible elements about your client relationship, right? Do you have a relationship with the clients that you're working with where they want to work with you, where they couldn't imagine having to go and set up a whole new communication system and deal with this and deal with that? Are you actually a reliable person? Do you hit your deadlines? Do you work with a client in a way that is clear and helpful to them? Do you become an asset, an invaluable asset to their business? Because if you're only thinking about, okay, I'm an editor and this is my price point and that's the core of my business, you are going to start getting beat. You have to think about the client experience. People should come to you for more than just, are you $5 an hour cheaper or not? Right. And if you look, like, there are editors getting paid way more than, some of the people that you're working with in your editing course. Why? Why is that? Is it just right place, right time? Some of it, sure. But also some of it is that they have developed relationships with the right people. They have created a client experience that people want to be involved in. And so you have to understand how to compete outside of only price. And there's a great book I would recommend anybody who has a service-based business or is selling anything online to read.
I think I know which book you're about to recommend.
Which one do you think it is?
I think it's the one by Alex Hormozy, $100 million.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I knew it.
Fantastic book. $100 million Offers by Hormozy. Honestly, if you don't read the whole book, you can also go to acquisition.com and literally see summaries of the book by him for free online. And one of the most valuable pieces of the book is just the way in which he makes you ask questions about your business and your client experience that can help you think about the different intangible ways that you can add to your business and add to your client experience so that you can have people come to you. If you are only competing on price, you are going to be beaten by people that are not living in first world countries, period. They are going to beat you. They have a laptop just like you and it costs way less for them to live. They are going to beat you. You have to think about the experience in a different way.
Dude, that was gold. That was gold. And I actually ordered that book because we had a conversation over 6 months ago at this point, I think, when I first wanted to launch my course, and you were like, "Hey, get that book." So that's why I knew you were going to say that, because I got the Audible version, but I wanted to order like the actual hard copy. I was like, no, this is when I want to like get the highlighter out and like sit down and actually read.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, for those of you that are listening, order the book. It's like 99 cents on Amazon or something like that. It's like super cheap.
Yeah.
And go to acquisition.com, which is his website. Like, he has him talking through some of the important questions and the way that you can think about the different pieces of your business. So this is what I really like about his view on things. It's, in certain ways, it's kind of similar to what I'm doing with the top development story framework, which what he's doing is saying like, hey, there are categories and sections of your offer, right? The way, or your service or your product. And you can focus on improving the different categories and sections of that offer or service or product that are different, that can help better the entire piece, like the entire thing that you're offering. So, if you are an editor, that's a great book to take a look at. Because you have to think about your business differently. And for me too, this is, I know a lot of editors out there that are, they see editing as an art, and it is an art, just as screenwriting is an art. But what I'm doing, like, I spend so much of my time on the business side, right? And it's like, I've even gotten criticized for that, because people are like, "Oh, you're a business guy. You're not a storyteller. You're not a writer. You're a guy who does business." It's like, I'm a person who enjoys the craft of building things, period. I love business and I love storytelling and I love these different things. And if you can fall in love with the business side of what you're doing as well as the artistic side, it will help you so much more in life rather than holding this outdated, archaic idea that art and business have to be these separate entities.
I agree completely.
As long as you are separating those two things, you will continue to flounder and it will be hard for you to live the life that you want to live.
Totally. And Alex Hormozy even says, like in one of his YouTube videos, I think he even taught on the topic, and he talks about like in order to make like a real impact in an industry, like that you're in love with, specifically talking about an art form, you have to understand the business side as well. Like you have to understand. Otherwise, you'll just be doing that craft and you won't know how to reach anybody. Like you have to have somewhat of an understanding of business.
Absolutely. But, and it's why screenwriters and filmmakers have struggled as well, because when they only focus on the art side, that's why they get producers and producer notes that they hate and all this other side that they don't understand, because it's like at the end of the day, who has the say? The one with the money bag. So if you don't have the money bag and you don't understand the money bag and you say that's not art and I don't want to think about it, fine. You will always be beholden to the person who does understand it.
Totally. Exactly. Dude, great advice. You've provided absolute gems. But before we go out, I want to ask kind of what are your plans going forward now? Like what do you have in store in the future? Is it 100% top development?
So the big goal that hopefully can happen sooner rather than later. I'm not going to put any dates on anything, but top development needs to get some movies made, right?
That would be that's the big so insane. That would be insane.
That's what we need to do. So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on uniting screenwriters together under a unified story framework, initially so that they can write great screenplays. But then the next step to that is so that we can take a few of those screenplays and, when the writers want to work with us as optional, they don't have to do this.
Right.
But we want to be a development company that makes movies. So that is the next step, in the future. And, I would love for that to be within the next 18 to 24 months. We will see how everything shakes out, of course, but that's the big goal, right? And that's always been the goal, right? Ever since I was in film school deciding, you know what, I'm going to make movies. That's what the goal has been. It's just the path to get there has been a little bit non-traditional.
Yeah, dude, that's an epic goal. And I can't wait. And I'm sure a lot of listeners can't wait for that too. Where's a good place for everyone to find you?
So youtube.com/Tyler Mowery. It's still under Tyler Mowery right now. The handle is the Top Development YouTube channel. Topdevelopment.co will give you a big understanding of what it is we're doing, what we're up to, how we've got here, all that jazz. And if you want to follow me personally, you can do so on Instagram at Mowery, Mowery on Instagram.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thank you for dropping some gems on us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much.
For sure.